Rugby World Cup 2023 has officially come to a close, and what a story as South Africa completed back-to-back wins in a thrilling one-point final against the All Blacks. Joining myself and the columnists today to discuss the Springbok victory and to review the tournament as a whole is South Africa World Cup winner and world-renowned rugby coach Brendan Venter. Before we kick off this episode of the pod, I just wanted to give a shout out to our friends at Keith Prowse, the UK's leading provider of corporate hospitality experiences. Did you know that they have been offering hospitality experiences at Twickenham since 1979? So they know a thing or two on this. They've got an incredible selection of official hospitality experiences ranging from a live band, plenty of Guinness on tap, legendary players doing the rounds, some of the best seats in the house to watch the game, and loads more. So if you've got a special occasion coming up that you want to celebrate or a key client you're desperate to impress, make sure you get in touch with Keith Prowse by visiting their website, keithprowse.co.uk/Twickenham. I've heard that they're almost sold out of their Ireland packages already for next year's Guinness Six Nations, so I suggest that you guys hurry. The Springboks have done it. They have become the second nation to go back-to-back, and it was a hell of a way to do it. The final was every bit as close as we expected. We predicted a 3-point game on the Rugby Paper podcast last week. It turned out to be a 1-point game. The third 1-point game in the knockout stages for South Africa. It wasn't necessarily pretty at times, but it was certainly full of drama. We're going to look at the final, look at the tournament as a whole. And joining myself and the columnist today is someone who played the last time the Springboks downed the All Blacks in a Rugby World Cup final back in 1995. Brendan Venter, have you recovered from Saturday night?
Yeah, no, it was fantastic. Obviously, the people are over the moon in our country, so it's been brilliant. And as Sia said, New Zealand wanted to win and we needed to win, which was great.
Where were you when you were watching? Were you at home or were you out and about?
Yeah, at home. Just had some friends over. No, it was wonderful.
Talk to me about your emotions throughout the game. Obviously, I said finals are never running rugby spectacles, and when it was pissing it down in Paris, that was never going to be the case as well. Still, as a drama, it played out fantastically. We had the red card to Sam Cain. We had 3 other yellow cards. Just talk to me about the ups and downs as obviously a partisan South African.
Okay, so I'm quite good at detaching myself from the outcome. For me, I enjoy it as a game. I enjoy watching it. I really like rugby. I love rugby, and I love all the dynamics that comes with rugby. So, although I want us to win, for me, it was just great to watch because, as you said, it had everything, all the drama, everything was in there. And when Chesson got yellowed late in the game, it just added a bit of spice to the drama. And there's so much to talk about in this thing. There's so many things that, had they gone slightly different, the outcomes could have been so much different, which is basically the whole tournament. You little things kept happening. I think that's the interesting conversation we'll have today.
Yeah, 100%. And it's a difficult question to answer, but in one answer of a question, why did the Springboks prevail? Obviously, three 1-point wins at some point, 2's a coincidence maybe, but 3's a pattern. At some point, you've got to say, actually, it wasn't just a case of, I don't know, the rub of the green or the bounce of the ball or the referee's whistle or whatever, but actually it's a case of genuine resolve when you're under the pump.
I think in a way you are not right. When we saw the way this World Cup was set up, and some of my friends asked me, what do you think? I just said to them, well, basically you're going to need a load of luck. The team that's going to win is going to need a load of luck. It's as simple as that. And the way, as you're now trying to say, is luck just pans out, 6 of the one and half dozen of the other. But in this case, it didn't, because the reasons why things went South Africa's way were very different. It was not the fight back. You take the England game, Ox scrummed brilliantly, Ox, Vinny and Bongi scrummed brilliantly. But I think the opposition that came on were not nearly as strong, where the same impact that Ox, Bongi and them had against the All Blacks was nullified with a 7-1 split. So the different things, the thing that did it in the final was the yellow and red cards. So that was just something completely different, and against France were cruising. The thing that did it there is France should have been gone, and they kept cutting the line and they couldn't finish. And at 25-19, I said to my wife, we're going to win this. They're not putting us away, not because I'm clever, purely from loads of watching rugby, something is going to happen, yeah, and exactly what happened. The thing turned, we got a bit of energy, we got a penalty here and there, all of a sudden we score and we win the game. So to answer your question, I think it's just very diverse. This was our tournament. It's as simple as that. How can one team have so many good things go their way? It's literally impossible, which is amazing. And for many times as a South African, we've been at the taking side of this thing. We've had calls go against us. And in this case, I think so many calls went our way. We can actually just be thankful about it,
Yeah, that's a fascinating way. You met. Sorry, Nick, go on.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a fascinating analysis. I mean, I know that it's an old saying, it's a cliche, but I think you make your own luck. In sport as well as in other walks of life, and I think that South Africa made their own luck certainly on a number of occasions. Obviously, you've got to get breaks in sport, but I think that the big break obviously is Sam Cain being yellow and then red carded in the final. It does make a difference, but I mean, we're told all the time that teams train, now to be with 14 men and to be highly effective with 14 men. And actually, New Zealand were pretty effective for long periods with 14 men. But
I like the way you think of it, and I'll give you a good example regarding what you're saying. So, for instance, when South Africa kick against France, and they kick on the smallest wing on the field, and they put Ebenezer Pieter-Steph there, and they get the crumbs. It's a great kick. It's the right play. And the ball rebounds and they score a try. That, for me, is making your own luck, because you created a thing that you're not going to score necessarily, but you've put things in your favor at 70%, 30%. And when CR gets the ball in the final as well, it's not luck. If you do things correctly, so that's creating your own luck. I think in this World Cup, as a coach, you always look at something and you say, what did I contribute to that? And what did I have absolutely zilch, zero, nothing to do with? And those are actually the things I'm discussing. Yeah, when I say we were unbelievable blessed, we had zilch, nothing, zero to do with Fazel's yellow card. We had nothing to do with Cain's red card. There were so many little things that kept just swinging into our favor. And you look at the England game. I think in the 59th minute, 57th minute, they've got a 5-meter scrum from our line. They're 15-6 up. The first scrum gets reset. If Ben had picked that ball up and carried, and they'd come around the corner, the chance for a penalty was really good, and they'll go 18-6 up, and we are out on our feet. So we look and we say, what happened? We got energy from Ox and Vinny's scrum. So energy is this weird thing. We don't know what happens, but belief comes in. Did not happen, and Ben went other way, we would have looked at it and said no. And this is from a rugby coach's point of view, and somebody who's played. We got the energy at the right times in this game, and they didn't always come from things that we planned. I think that was, for me, is the main thing.
There were a couple of moments, Brendan, weren't there, at the back end of the game where the energy you describe, and this kind of energy, this backs against the wall energy, is something we've come to associate with outstanding teams, and particularly with South Africa. You could go back to 95 and you could smell the energy then. You picked up a lot of crumbs in that final, a hell of a lot of crumbs. But the Pieter-Steph du Toit tackle when when Geordie Barrett was trying to work that overlap late in the game, the Faf de Klerk tap tackle, that was energy writ large, wasn't it? I mean, you could argue that neither of those players had much right to make those tackles, actually. They were exceptional efforts, born of desperation or energy-charged desperation.
I think that's the way South Africa play. I think that's one of the reasons Faf went out there, why Rassie and Jock selected him. Faf is a little energy giver. He just adds a lot of energy. Pieter-Steph is the same thing. What I mean is that in a rugby game, you've got 80 minutes. And we all know there's ebbs and flows and things go right and go wrong. And finding the energy at the right time with the same thing, with a little bit of luck, call it whatever you want. For me, that was the distinguishing thing. What Faf did there and Peter Steff did there, that's Peter Steff and that's Faf. And that's what makes South Africa a really brilliant rugby side. You know, they work unbelievably hard. You look at how Arendse chases, how Chessie chases, how Jesse chases. You know, you look at the forwards around the corner. It's just amazing. They just work so hard. But to win this one, everybody works hard. Like the one guy was saying to me today, like, I don't think you have an idea how hard Rassie and Jacques and the team worked, how long they were away from their families. And it's true, everybody works hard. Steve Borthwick works hard, and I'm sure Galtier also worked hard, and you know, Eddie worked hard. So maybe there is another argument to make that everybody works hard, everybody's up for it. What makes that difference on the day that goes your way? That's the question which you're asking now. And I'll tell you that there's sometimes the uncontrollables that make that difference, that give energy, that we as coaches can't control. We love to say we control them. We can't control them. A good example would be the 7-1 bench on the weekend that had absolutely no impact on the game. Yet we look back, we say, you know, it didn't. You know, and it's me. I'm just very, very, very objective when I say to these things. It's a factual thing. I'm just a normal coach, and I love rugby. I'm out of my skin, unbelievably happy for our country and for the team. I know those players really well. They're good people. They work hard. But it's trying to be objective. Yeah.
I would one thing that I would say, Brendan, is that the South African bench. I take what you say about the 7-1 split not making a huge difference in this game, but it made a hell of a difference in a number of games.
In which game?
Well, it made a hell of a difference against England. You know, huge.
And it was actually the All Black game. I don't think we went 7-1. We went 6-2 against England.
Yeah.
So I don't think they went 7-1.
I said the bench, though. You know, I mean, there were variations on the bench. And that was the thing, was that the management of the South African bench was superior, in my view, to and the players on the bench.
I think that's more the issue. That's more the issue. We've got way better depth. You know, I really felt for Carl Sinclair because he came on, him and Genge, and they are not great scrummagers. And who came on against them was basically
a great scrummager.
And I mean, Vinny has been amazing for Saracens over the years. He's a great scrummager. I think that's more the point. That same thing happened against France. Their bench just wasn't nearly as good as our bench. It's because our players are better. Now, for me, again, we go back to the first conversation. Did we not do really well to create that depth, and that's the reason we're so successful? So that's where the coaching staff, for me, need to get immense credit, because they knew we're going to need depth when it comes to the World Cup. You know, and all the things we said about Eddie, for Eddie to lose the tight head and to lose Will Skelton before those big games, it's huge. We just forget sometimes, you know, that there are good players out there. And when our good players are on the field, we're good. When our good players are not on the field, we're just not as good as coaches as we think, you know.
Yeah, but it's interesting how that there are some nations that that have a real belief and a real expertise in the basics of the game, in the fundamentals of the game. And South Africa is one of those nations. And England and Australia, who've shared the same coach for some of the last 4 years. Look, he's never, I mean, despite the fact that he was a hooker, he has never, ever managed to put an emphasis on England becoming a good scrummaging team. They weren't a good scrummaging team, particularly in 2019, and they were a very poor scrummaging team in the intervening 4 years. I mean, Sinclair and Genge have not improved as scrummagers.
I just think the way they look as well, though. Remember, they are mobile props. We've got something different.
Sure.
I think something you just don't have it. I mean, we've all been there as coaches. You know, it's not that they lacked effort or anything. It's just they almost were out of their depth when it came to the front that was up against them. It's really difficult. Yeah, and you look back, because what we always do, we all love the retrospective scope. We always look back and we want to contribute something. So I literally just don't function like that. I look at the facts and I say, where did I do contribute? Because otherwise I don't learn for myself. What will I do different next time? You know, in my profession, that's exactly how medicine works. We keep asking ourselves today, I'm 53 years old, did I make some mistakes? What were those mistakes? And this is the way I look at the rugby. And I basically always ask myself, where did I contribute? And where was I just fortuitous that things went my way?
Can I just pick up on Brendan's bigger point there about the perception that South Africa enjoyed quite a bit of luck on the way? I'm one of those who thought they did actually get quite a bit of luck with some refereeing decisions and other stuff, but that is massively outweighed by the bad luck of that draw. To be the reigning world champions and to end up in that pool with Ireland, Scotland, Tonga, to have to play World Cup finals in effect in the quarterfinal and the semi-final before you even get to play New Zealand, that so massively outweighs the good fortune I think they got in various decisions on occasions. So, of course they were going to need some luck to win the World Cup from where they found themselves in that pool. That's the hardest won World Cup.
I don't disagree with you. This is the biggest achievement of any rugby side. It was the best World Cup with the best opposition. I don't think there's enough stuff. I sent Jacques a message praising him and saying, honestly, such a great World Cup, such strong opposition. I don't think the debate is that. This is why, for me, they deserve so much credit. Because of the quality of the opposition. But it doesn't change the fact that things went unbelievable. And is it explainable? For me, it's honestly, it's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that struck me...
Sorry, Nick.
I was going to say, one of the things that struck me about the final is that there was all the talk about, Dion Fourie being a makeshift hooker and so on, and coming back to hooking late in the day. I can't remember what time Mbonambi went off, but it was pretty early. It must have been in the first 10 minutes. And for them to, steady the ship. I mean, the All Blacks got into him a bit in the second half and picked off a fair number of his throws. But even so, he played extremely well in the circumstances, and for a long period wasn't missed. Mbonambi wasn't missed.
Yeah. I disagree. That's not true. I think the dominance in the scrum is a big issue. The reason we couldn't get dominance in the scrum was one of the reasons, because we demolished the All Blacks at Twickenham in the scrum, both halves. Obviously, Lomax went off early, and the throwing. If that was any other outcome, Dion would have been blamed for missing 4 or 5 lineouts. If you lose 4 or 5 lineouts, people are not going to say it's okay. It's purely that we won the game that we say it's okay. Factually, it didn't work from a purely lineout point of view.
No. I mean, the conditions were pretty cruel, and Mbonambi had a few difficulties against England in the wet as well. But I take your point. I mean, it's a fair point.
So, if I could just interrupt and just talk about, Brendan, you spoke about how unbelievable what's happened and how you can't explain it. We talk about how World Cups are remembered, and obviously World Cup wins in particular. 1995 is obviously the perfect example, and is probably remembered, it's set apart from the rest of them. 2015, that All Blacks team is remembered as one of the greatest sides of all time. Like you say, this is probably the greatest achievement of any rugby team to go on the path that they've gone through. But a little stat for everyone. So, and I tried to explain this to my brother earlier, and it was a disaster. So I'll try and be clear. The aggregate of each World Cup winner ever over the course of the knockout stages, the average of that for the first 9 World Cups was 47 points. Obviously, South Africa's aggregate winning margin is 3. And so, it's, I mean, it's not even close. Is this how this World Cup, Brendan, and this win in particular will be remembered? Is sort of, Titanic battle after Titanic battle. And yes, a little bit of luck involved, but actually it's the greatest achievement by the barest of margins of any team ever.
I think that's the bottom line. This is the greatest achievement by any. If France had won this, it would still have been the greatest achievement by any team ever. If New Zealand had won this, it would still be the greatest achievement by any team ever. For me, we won it. It is the greatest achievement. It was just magnificent. The conversation is about other stuff, but this is unbelievable, incredible, amazing. For me, it's just what it is. And whether we debate all kinds of stuff, what happened, what should have happened, the Sam Cain red, the Fazal yellow, should it have been? That's not the point, because there were so many, and I think one of you guys said it, there were so many things. It was so hard to get to where they got. It is incredible.
Talk as a obviously native South African, talk about what it means back home. Sia alluded to it in both his post-match interview and the press conference. I think I'm more or less quoting him word for word when I say that he said, as non-South Africans, you don't understand what this means for our country. So can you try and sort of elaborate on that a bit?
I think you'll still see with me, I'm very objective about these things. And it is brilliant. But if it doesn't kick on with what it creates in a country, then it was just like buying a new car. You feel great about it for 2 weeks and then the novelty wears off. So things are amazing and everybody's very positive. For us, it's going to be able to figure out how do we keep this energy going with what these people have achieved. For me, it's the courage, it's the fight, it's the sacrifice that these players have gone onto, and their coaches, with the whole coaching staff, not just Rassie and Jacques, but all the coaches, to be away from home so much. We actually cannot thank them enough for the sacrifices they've made for our country, and for our people.
Do you think, Brendan, on this subject, and it should be, I mean, the theory always about these kinds of things that happened with England in 2003, I'm sure you'll remember, is that this is the great launch pad. This is transformative for the game in our country, etc., etc., etc. The spin-offs and the improvements and everything is going to be off the wall. Where do you think South African domestic rugby is at the moment? And I'm thinking primarily about the situation in the Eastern Province, where your captain comes from, which has been on its knees, hasn't it? Down Port Elizabeth Way, the Eastern Cape. How strong what condition is South African domestic rugby in at the moment, and what do you hope it can become?
That's a really, really, really good question, because you look at your first question is, can we kick on from this, and can we go and dominate world rugby? And in my opinion, the answer is absolutely no. Nobody will dominate world rugby again in the future. Too much depth in France, too much depth in Ireland. England will do well with Steve. I don't think that'll happen. And there's a couple of reasons. There's a lot of studies done on continuity in selection. And the way Ireland have now gone, and France, where they only select people who are homegrown, you will struggle forever and ever and ever to compete with Ireland because of only that thing. They've got great development stuff, but the reality is Leinster and Munster being so dominant in that, they're going to have continuity that oozes out of them forever and ever and ever. Same as France. We've actually gone, when Rassie when he came on board in 2018, the first thing he did is he changed the rule. He says, we'll select people from everywhere. We just want the best players. As a matter of fact, it actually doesn't matter if they play away. Now, there's no way you can debate. The Aussies did the same thing, and it was disastrous for them. Everybody left. There's no money. So now, what are we going to do about this now? Because our quality of our provincial rugby is not amazing at the moment. We know when all the Boks are playing in the country, the quality just goes up. Is there a solution? No, there's no real solution, because the players get paid so much money. So are you going to make them choose, like Dwayne and them chose, and Faf and them, and they all left and they weren't selected under Alistair? So Alistair had a completely different challenge, because he couldn't select the best players in the country. Then your question is, will we kick on? And I'm not sure. I think everybody playing club rugby in France, for Toulouse, for Toulon, for Racing, all of these things just strengthen the domestic competition, and England must not go away from that. They must rather find funding and strengthen the domestic, keep Marrow and keep all the guys there. If you look at what happened, and Theo Dan had a great World Cup when he got a go, but if you could have had Cowan Dickey in the mix, I know he was injured, but that second hooker, it's incredible how thin England really was in the scenario, So it's a very good question about how do you keep rugby growing in a country? How do you keep the young people interested? They need to go to games at Newlands, at Kings Park, where they're seeing the Springboks playing,
But the truth is, obviously, that's the scenario you're describing has been the case in the 4-year cycle as well. And it seems that certainly the national Springbok model, and this is more obviously at the Springbok level rather than the domestic level, it does function on the 4-year cycle, peaking at the right time and there seems to be this whole mantra in camp at the moment of not picking the best 15, but the right 15, really emphasizing that 4 years.
But remember, the right 15 means that everybody's available for selection. There's a very big difference. You can have the right to pick the right 15 if everybody's available selection. You just get what you get if everybody's not available selection. I mean, this is the same challenge the All Blacks are going to sit with. They're going to have a drain, because they're going to say, that's going to be the challenge.
Yeah, well, the All Blacks have a lot of players off to Japan and things, don't they? So they are going to be a little bit scant for the next couple.
And I don't think what Russ is doing is wrong for the national team. You must understand that. If Eddie had when Will Skelton came back, it was like a game changer for them. He's an amazing rugby player, worth so much, so good for La Rochelle. He's amazing. Why would you not pick one of the best 5 locks in the world to play for you every week? So it's good for the national side. But the question there was the domestic side teams. Will we benefit from it if everybody plays away? That's the question. And Irish rugby is just getting stronger and stronger and stronger because they keep everybody there.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. Brendan, you said that you didn't want to debate the Sam Cain red card, so I'm not going to ask you in particular about it.
No, it's not a debate. Gladly, I'll never say that. I'll debate anything.
Okay.
For me, it's not at all a debate. When did I say that to you?
No, I all right. No, maybe not that. I think you said
you made it up.
Okay, fine. We'll go
no
with
problem.
Yeah. Okay, what did you make of the Sam?
I would love to hear other people's opinion first. Brendan, maybe his opinion on it first, because I've been talking so much. It's actually been a monologue.
Right.
Okay.
Brendan.
My opinion is Sam Cain always goes in pretty high. He's had his eye in recently and has been playing very well, but he just mistimed that one a bit. And given the atmosphere, or not the atmosphere, the protocols at the moment, as soon as it was yellow, I thought it would become a red. Now, I've seen much worse reds than that, but if that had been in the first week of the World Cup, that was a definite red, the way they were repping it then. And I don't really see why there should be any difference between the first week and the last week. So it wasn't a shocker, but it was a red, and he got it. Wayne Barnes got it right. Well, Wayne Barnes got the yellow card right bit, and the cross went to the man in the van, and it was a red.
It was certainly readable under the laws as they stand. It was readable, I think. I mean, I don't think he's wildly harshly done by. However, I also think that if the bunker system hadn't been in place and Wayne had to make the call on the field, that would have been a yellow.
Yeah. I think that's probably right. I thought it was again under the protocols as they exist at the moment, it was a red. He hit him fair and square in the head with his shoulder, and that under the current guidelines is a red.
And could have gone lower, couldn't he? I mean, he could have gone lower. There wasn't a second tackler involved.
Yeah. He stands tall, Sam Cain, all the time.
Yeah.
He gets it right, it right. And when he gets it wrong, he doesn't.
There was a choice for him to make. Actually, in that particular incident, there was a choice for him to make.
And one of the things that's obviously the sort of controversy that's come up is whether Khaleesi should also have got a red. And my view of that one was he shouldn't have got a red. He should have got a yellow.
Yeah. On what grounds?
Say again.
On what grounds would that be?
Well, I don't think that I don't think that he made any. He hit the opponent with any force. There was a ricochet, as far as I.
Where's the force-o-meter that they measured the injury by? Where's the force-o-meter?
How do you mean?
Well, exactly. It should be a factual thing. Otherwise, it just becomes an opinion, because
it does.
You're just
saying.
Right.
But there's so much in the game that's just there's so much in the officiating of the game that's just opinion.
That's why this was such a big mistake, which we benefited from, and I'm super happy that we are the beneficial team. But it was a disastrous decision by Tom Foley. It had absolutely no rugby understanding. It can't be somebody who's played the game at a good level, because there was no rugby thought that gone into this thing. Let me ask you guys in the panel, if he had given a yellow, Do you think anybody in the world watching that would have debated that, except South Africans now? But do you think any neutral would have said, it's crazy, that's definitely red?
I think some people would, Brendan, because they would have looked back at Tom Curry's red at the first week, which was, well, if that's a red, that's got to be a red. That's how people's minds work. And on that...
and then what is Sears one then? Why does Sears
Well,
one
I think
not
Sears,
go
I think he hits the torso first and ricochets into the head. He also hinges.
Do you want to show that clip?
He hinges like Peter Steph Dutoit does, and why he's such a great tackler. At least Sears is hinging. Now, he does, but the converse of that is that the impact with severe is much more severe. I'm amazed he didn't go off for an HIA, whereas Jesse Creel seems to get fairly, stay fairly lightly with it.
Yeah, exactly. So there was none of that. There was no force in the process. Jesse didn't even get an injury. No. And did Barnes pick any of the two up? No. So Barnes, both were brought in by Foley. So Foley had the biggest, and remember, I'm sitting here with my South African hat on. It's benefited us. We won the World Cup. We won 4 World Cups now. It's amazing. I'm looking at this thing and saying, if this had happened to us, would we have actually said Tom Foley was fair? Absolutely no. I think Tom Foley had a disaster, way too involved in the process, and he should have been way more dominant to do the right thing. What is the right thing? The right thing is not about Tom Foley. The right thing is about rugby. No malice in Cain's hit. No explosion. Jesse didn't even go off. There's absolutely no way that somebody can say to me that this is a red card thing because you went with a swinging arm or numerous other things. There was no malice intended. And even the Fazell thing, if somebody says to me he deliberately fell on Bongi's knee with his body, I'm going, how many cleans have you seen in your life getting a yellow card? Not a neck roll. I mean a clean falling on somebody's knee, And again, please understand from a South African point of view, it worked brilliantly for us. We kicked 3 there. We got a red card for 50 minutes, but there's no way Tom Foley could have got that right.
I think
not in a million years.
I think that the point about they called it foul play, what Frizzell did. And for me, like you, it was accidental. It's what happens.
100%.
But
he fell backwards apart from anything else.
The Khaleesi...
Unless he had eyes in his buttocks, he couldn't have known where he was going to land.
The Khaleesi and Sam Cain thing, for me, is different because Cain was always high and, he hit him with his shoulder straight to the head. No ricochet, nothing.
No, but that's not the point. The point is, was there malice intended? Was it forceful, like somebody picking somebody up and driving them into the ground? Is malice intended. Somebody with a swinging arm attacking people, like I attacked Dawson in the final, that is malice intended. That's completely different. You understand? For me, you look at Sam Cain's hit, it was a normal hit. He didn't finish it. It didn't even... Barnes, who was officiating, didn't even see it. Foley came in later. And it influenced the game so much. I keep saying to you, if this was my South African hat on, imagine this had happened to Sia. And 50 minutes to go, and we had been a man down. I would have said, that is wrong, Tom Foley. You don't understand rugby. You don't understand what you've done here. You've had a bigger impact on a World Cup final, and on a person's career than anybody else by interfering again and again.
And isn't it ironic, Brendan, that the whole sort of system, the whole industry of rugby decision-making, which has gone from an individual like Ed Morrison, who ran your final in 95, and Ed had an instinctive rapport with the players. I don't think he did in commentaries or coaching sessions on the field. But it was amazing. It's a different age. So we've now had the TMO. We've now gone to another level with the bunker, which means that the referee on the field never has to make a decision again, not on red cards. And this was meant to take away. The controversy of it. That is specifically designed to be factual.
100%. Look, remember, if this guy went through the protocol, everybody says you use the protocol. And I'm saying, so where's the protocol that's saying there's excessive force? Where's that? I don't understand this excessive force thing. What is excessive force? Was it foul play? Was it a swinging arm?
Is it not more of a question? Is it
Hmm.
not more of a question of what's more likely to do damage in terms of concussion?
But they don't know. If before they put in little meters in the ears and actually say when the scrum caps, let's measure this thing. Oh, no problem.
Or
This
in the
was a
mouth
7 point through.
or
it's
in the
embarrassing
gum
actually. Yeah, in the gum shoes. I'm looking at the thing and going, but one guy's got a soft chin. He goes down for nothing. The other boxer has got a brilliant chin, same force. It's absolutely absurd. Foley should have looked at that thing and just said, they should have sat in a circle and say, boys, this is the right thing. This is a yellow card. Let's continue the game. And there we go. It's as simple as that. And we would always look back at this thing and said, wow, it was a great final and was clever. We actually shouldn't be talking about referees. That's actually the point. Now we're having a debate about referees and we've got it wrong. And this is sort of my big frustration, why it frustrates me to coach at a high level.
So what should we go back to, Brendan? What should we go? Where should we use the technology, the replays, and so on and so forth?
100% use it. It was just poorly used. Tom just made dreadful decisions because I've got technology. Doesn't teach me to make good decisions. There's nothing wrong with the system. There's nothing wrong with the system. It was just a bad rugby decision, not in the benefit of the game.
It's actually a bad look, Brendan, isn't it? And we're not talking about a health and safety legal or borderline illegal tackle here. We're talking about Wayne Barnes' self-confessed mistake when he penalised Surveyor in the first half, which gave Pollard 3 points. So back in the day, if that decision had been made, without the TMO and without the big screens, the referee would have said, look, he's, that's how I've seen it, end of story. But now, of course, you get to see it on the big screen. Everyone starts whistling. Barnes now has to turn around and audibly to a world audience of millions, apologise to Surveyor for getting it wrong. And you're thinking, none of this
I thought he said that's how he saw it. I thought Barnes said, but that's how I saw it.
But he also said, I'm sorry, I thought this happened.
No, that wasn't an apology. Trust me, that was him just saying, that's the way I saw it. That was not an apology.
So it was an I'm sorry, get lost kind of thing, rather than I'm sorry, I got that wrong. Is that 100%. How you read it? I read it the other way. So, but it's just all of this furniture around the game now, which is designed to take the controversy out, just seems to be throwing more fuel on the fire.
You must understand, New Zealand, and I like the New Zealand people because they're real rugby people, and they've got a brilliant. I toured there when I was young for 7 weeks, and they're good people and they love the game. Okay, and I'm looking at the thing and I'm asking myself constantly, how would I have felt if this was if these things had happened to me in the scenario, And they deliberately brought a system in where they said a red will be 20 minutes, and then you can bring another player on. They brought it in to prevent this because that was their initiative. They brought this in to prevent things like this. Or am I wrong?
Well, I do. If you took a dark view of that, and I see where you're coming from. If you took a dark view of that, if that system had been in place in the final, and you've named your side with a 7-1 split, and not a second scrum, not even close to a second scrum half anywhere. If somebody thought, we can take a 20-minute hit for the team if we put Faf off the pitch in the first 5 minutes.
Rugby players don't think like that. No, that was for me, there's no way.
I'm glad they've changed.
Yeah.
And maybe it was just when I was playing that they thought like that. Everyone just wanted to get rid of me, which is understandable.
Yeah. I mean, you must understand, their way didn't say that you're only off for 20 and you're not banned. You would still go to a tribunal. And if you have malice intended with foul play, you'll get banned for 3 months, for 6 months.
But you could still do that to Faf and have a full 15 on the field after 20 minutes.
Yeah, I must admit, my brain doesn't think like that. So I can't imagine that a New Zealand person would have gone. It's like people saying Frizzell went for Bongi's knee. I'm going, how unbelievably bright must you be in milliseconds to see somebody cleaning, and this is the person who's only the only one, and now I'm going to fall on his knee. That's like being a ninja. It's impossible to it's normal thinking is it was just something that happened. It was a normal rugby thing that happened. It happened to 1 million people already. Not one person has ever been sent off. And I'm batting here for the other guys. I actually feel sorry for them. I wanted us to win, but yeah.
I mentioned earlier, and I'd be fascinated to hear your answer about this, Brendan, with the legacy of the All Blacks team that went back to back. And particularly we consider on this podcast the stronger of those two teams was the one in 2015. I wanted to know how you thought a matchup would go between the All Blacks of 2015 and this South African side, because obviously they're now in leagues of their own.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think the involvement of the South African team has been with Mani there, that they did manage to play more of a ball in hand game. And I think that's where they gained. But what made them so brilliant to me, and because we haven't even talked about New Zealand's poor tactics in the final. South Africa went straight back to what they're good at. Set piece, defense, kick and chase, literally learn from England. This is going to be a low scoring game, and actually tactically outplayed the All Blacks. So for me, this is what makes this team exceptionally good. Under Jock and Rusty, this team works unbelievably hard to get off the floor, to chase the kicks, to get back into real line. But the All Black team has always been a team of magic makers, and those little half gaps, you all have, played against them. You think you've got them, and then they just score out of nowhere, a 7-pointer or 14 point. So if you want to ask me, how is it? They had that magic. And this All Black team thought that they can play against South Africa like that, like in 2019, and they played incredibly dumb. And South Africa just outplayed them,
Yeah. I was just thinking about, in the great scheme of things, Brendan, that New Zealand win over France in the final in Auckland in 2011. They got a real headwind of luck, as you say, when
100%.
Jerome Kano was banged to rights right in front of the post, and somehow the penalty wasn't given.
The South African ref didn't give it, so at least they can feel they won that one because of us.
Yeah. Therefore,
in the end, you Southern Hemisphere guys have to stick together,
Absolutely. What you going on the strings, you lose in the roundabouts. That's actually a good point.
One thing we have missed, or we haven't really spoken about. The final. There was nothing in the final. It was a hell of a tight game. In the end, the All Blacks had a kick to win it. It was a wickedly difficult kick, and they missed it by a foot. And there's the game.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
There's go. South Africa, I thought, exerted a very large degree of control in the first half, and I buy the argument that New Zealand weren't particularly bright in that period. They also lost the aerial battle. They lost a lot of what you describe as the crumbs on the floor, which may or may not have something to do with the fact that Cain wasn't on there for that long, etc. The second half, the All Blacks did begin to play. I think they did begin to pick up the temperature of the game. I think they did stress the All Black defence far more than they had done hitherto. And in the end, it comes down to a very, very difficult kick. And there's your game.
Two very difficult kicks, because obviously there was Mo'unga missed the conversion as well.
Now, it's interesting you say that. His goal kicking record in the semi against Argentina was 4 out of 8, 50%.
Good point. Yeah.
And his kick, his right-footed kicker, left-hand side of the pitch. I don't know how far in, maybe about, maybe just over 5 meters in. I think that was a kick that, you would hope that your lead kicker would get.
But that kick, I think that's true. But that kick's a bit further, in sort of mid-second half, or it's a lot further away from the final whistle. I mean Barrett's kick was what, 2.5 minutes?
Yeah, look, difficult.
That was
difficult kick.
A kick. They wouldn't have taken it on if it had been any further away. And also they rejected a couple of kicks at the sticks as well.
They did.
Which slightly surprised me, I must admit.
But that would just, my previous argument when we started the conversation today was that there's no control over the Jordie Barrett kick. There's nothing you did that missed the kick. No. That's why I say if I added up all the little things that were in our favor, You must remember the first try was scored much closer to the 15, Aaron Smith try.
Yeah.
It was not scored in the corner. And that was, now it was completely rightly turned over. Don't get me wrong. Again, it's the right decision was made. Yeah. But in the past, that would have gone on. And that the kick would have been an easier kick. That would have been a 1-point game the other way. Just to explain to you guys that those things have got nothing to do with energy or getting the game back or whatever we want to call it.
And also, you had no input in either on the field or in the Springbok coaching box into the decision to take Aaron Smith off. Why would you take Aaron Smith off?
I agree. That wasn't the brightest thing. Yeah.
Just when he was really beginning to influence that game in a massively positive way for the All Blacks.
Do you know what?
I couldn't believe it.
Brendan, it's actually a question that I'd really like to ask, because I'm not clear on it. Why do coaches take players off when they are playing? They appear to be playing well. They appear to be being very influential, and suddenly you see a guy who may be playing a blinder, and he's taken off. And the consequences of it, I mean, there's no question. You get impact subs who make a hell of a difference, but it seems to me that, it's a difficult thing to call the balance of.
But in my experience,
a lot of the time.
To answer you from a coach, if you want to know from a coach's point of view. So I actually agree with what you're saying. I think it's too difficult trying to influence the game by making really good decisions of this guy must come off and this guy must stay on. I think it's complicated. So for me, I literally had a pre-planned idea. You'll go on then, when you're going to come up and you play. I don't talk about somebody, but somebody never had a disaster when I coached them, because I never saw them like that. I actually thought they all played well, But I agree with you. Why try and the Damien McKenzie one, you could argue, where you say to somebody, you're a game breaker for us. You can chip and chase. You can kick it through. You can do something wonderful. Go on for Richie, and see if something happens. But I 100% with the Aaron Smith thing. That was crazy, taking him off. And they had a rhythm about it,
Oh. And in that position, I mean, he's an absolute heartbeat for that team. And Mo'unga, I don't think, who in the other mega influential position on the field, I don't think he really hit his heights during the tournament. I mean, I think he's a very fine player. I think he was a little bit off of his own very high standards. But Aaron Smith at that point in a Nats chuff game, I mean, really, really tight game, is the heartbeat of the side, and he's exerting increasing amounts of influence, and you hook him off. Just bizarre.
Brendan, are the GPS trackers an influence in this at all? The drop in energy levels and so on and so forth. Does that come into it?
No, massively. And I think Sia is a good example. Sia is one of those players that you could almost say is like a V8, really fast, but uses loads of fuel. Peter Steff is a weird V8. He's like a hybrid. He just uses no energy, but he still runs like a mad thing. But it's genetic. When I say that is the ability, Sia can go very hard, and that's why he's so comfortable coming off, because there's no expectation that he must finish the game. But it's not because he's not playing well. They know Sia so well, and they work with him, and they know Peter Steff so well, and they say, you keep going, So I think with the South African setup, they are very much pre-planned with their subs. If you look at what they do, they'll keep maybe 2 or 1 who they'll gamble with. But the rest of the guys, they say, go on, do what you do for us every week, Kwagga Smith, because Kwagga Smith's influence in the game, in my opinion, was huge. You get 2 turnovers in a rugby game in 30 minutes, you've had a huge impact on a rugby game. And that's not even saying how many cleans he forced from people, because he's always there and he's rushing you. And, but the refereeing, the sub conversation is an interesting conversation, because if a coach looked back and he'd claim all those he got right, I would love to see how many he got wrong.
That having outlined that philosophy of pre-planning, which I completely understand, it's the mark of a very good coaching team, isn't it? That when things really go breasts up, as they did in the first half against England, then you go away. You are prepared to go away from your plan if you have to. So that pragmatism is important, and I think they were. No matter what you think of the original selection, I think that what the Springbok coaches did in the first half against England was inspired, and it saved their backsides in the end.
I agree with you. It was an unbelievable brave decision, which came off. If you talk about decisions that have come off incredibly, that decision, if you had to add things up and say, for somebody to have the desire to take somebody off on 30 minutes into the game, and I looked at that and I said, I would definitely not have that ability. For me to look at Mani the next day, and Rassie and Jacques did it, you could argue, for the team and for the country, which I think is brilliant. And it's a good point on that. And if you talk about all the decisions that influenced our World Cup, that specific decision influenced our World Cup more than anything.
Was it the England match or the France match?
No, the England
that Sia came off after 45 minutes.
They
took him off very early, didn't the France match?
Yeah.
Again, massive call. And you've outlined the reasons there very well, Brendan. They know their man. And also, he's not that long back from huge injury. If it just wasn't...
I don't know if you guys know Sia's background on that injury. That is phenomenal. He had a
ACL,
real
wasn't it? Or
ACL
a version of an ACL.
And a proper ACL. It wasn't like a modified. It was again, if I can tell you how hard Sia worked and the staff to get Sia ready and the doctors, it's such a compliment to what they did. I can't actually give them enough praise at how well they did to get Sia. And Sia wasn't okay. Sia actually had a great tournament.
Yeah, he had a fantastic tournament.
How long before the tournament was the injury, Brendan?
About 6 months, but he started playing again within 4.5.
And that's something that normally takes 9 months.
6 to 9, 9 to a year.
Yeah,
no, it's phenomenal what they achieved, and also how hard he had to work. That's not one little rehab session for half an hour a day. That would have been proper rehab, And again, you look at the people that rehabbed them, how amazing it is what they achieved. I don't think it's ever been done in rugby circles to have played, because he had to prepare himself for it. I'm not 100% sure, but it was about a 4.5 month thing until Sia started playing again.
Pretty remarkable, isn't it?
It is remarkable.
Yeah. I actually want to ask Chewy, because I know you love the All Blacks team of 2015. I want to ask who would win in a matchup between this South African team and that All Black side.
Oh, look, I mean, on paper, where the game isn't played, I mean, I genuinely think that All Black team was a great side, was a genuinely great side. And I don't use the G word very often. That is not to say that on a given day, like last Saturday, they would have beaten a South African side that driven, that a side that could have their first principles in place and max out on them as well as the Springboks were able to do. I mean, I do think it was a great side. I mean, Brendan's a midfielder of old. I mean, I think the Carter, Nonu, Conrad Smith combination was pretty special, was very special. I think that whole World Cup was, the emotional heartbeat of that World Cup was Carter anyway. After what had happened to him in 2011, I thought he played extraordinarily well. So yes, I would say that on most occasions that I would expect that All Black side to win, but in a one-off final with all the intensity that brings, who can say?
They wouldn't have had 3 1-pointers. So there's no way they're going to have luck with 3 1-pointers.
Didn't they play South Africa in the? Didn't that 2015 New Zealand side play South Africa?
It was
the margin? What was the margin
in the semi-final?
What was the margin of victory? It was pretty narrow, wasn't it?
I think it was a 4.
I think Carter kicked the penalty from halfway and dropped the goal off the back foot.
Yeah, I'm not very good at these, comparing eras and so on and so forth. But that South African side in 2015 was not as good a side as the one that we've just seen.
No, probably not.
No.
And if there was 4 points in it, then I sort of would lean towards South Africa.
Yeah, that was very interesting. It was 2 points. I just checked, 20 points to 18. So it was bloody close. I'll stop pressing that comparison because you like you say, cross era comparisons are very difficult. Brendan, I wanted to ask about coaching innovation, and obviously you've touched upon Rassie and Jacques and how much credit they deserve. I just wonder whether you feel that there's a lot that other nations, and I'm talking, national rugby now, can learn from them. Obviously, South Africa and Rassie and Jacques, they've been trailblazers, really. The 6-2 didn't exist before South Africa started to implement it. Obviously, the 7-1 has only just started to exist. Traffic light systems, obviously, you make the call of early substitutions, like against England. What is it? It's not a blueprint, obviously, because coaches like that, they don't have a blueprint. But what can other coaches aspire to learn from them?
For me, that's not why South Africa good. South Africa good because Jacques and Rassie have got that team working unbelievably hard and understanding what their responsibility is within the team. So everybody knows exactly what's expected of them. And if they don't adhere to that, then they will not be in their group. So for me, that's what makes Jacques and Rassie exceptional. And it's with analysis and it's looking at stuff and it's being clever. The other stuff for me is a little bells and whistles. I'm not convinced with all the stuff, the lights. If I've got a thing in my why do I need a light? I don't need to tell someone with a light. So that doesn't make sense to me. But that they've got the best out of this group on a weekly basis for me. And what I think the thing that I'm impressed most by them is we take what we're good at. We stop trying to be like other people. We won this World Cup. If New Zealand had played like in the second half, they kicked the ball way more. They put way more pressure on us. France came down the short side, dinking it through. England came, kicked everything. And Rassie looked at this thing and said, how are we going to beat the All Blacks? We're going to smash them defensively. We're going to attack their set pieces. And we're going to kick the ball in behind them. And for me, that's a massive compliment. And we stuck to it. The team believes what we do. From a tactical point of view, I think that's been the big thing. And they've evolved as coaches as well, because they are definitely looking, as the game has been swinging slowly in favor of attack. Obviously, in the knockout stages, it just goes straight back to defense and kicking. It's always like that, going to be that like that. But they've evolved. And I actually look forward to South Africa evolving even further in that way, as the rules obviously favor the attacking team. So they've been great and it's been interesting, but some of the things have not been relevant,
One thing with Rassie that's been in the headlines in the last day or so, and this is a fairly Anglo-centric question, so I apologise for that, but Clive Woodward has said that Rassie would be his number one pick for England's next director of rugby. What do you think the chances of that happening are?
No, I think that would be a disaster, for both Rassie and for England. He's a really good coach, but way too many rules. It's difficult. England's a difficult place to coach. I love my time there, but way too many rules.
I can't imagine how you reached that conclusion, Brendan. I mean, you found dealing with authority here incredibly easy.
Exactly. And we've got a very, very well-known saying. Yeah, it's easier to apologize than to ask permission. And in England, it doesn't work like that.
And actually, slight correction there, Ollie. We've never had a director of rugby. It would be a first, not the next.
Yeah,
and they don't go in there. RFU aren't going there. So
no, that's very true. Or have.
I actually think in Steve, they've got a gem. Steve carried himself so unbelievably well this World Cup. I can't. You must understand. For me, the measure of a coach is in adversity. When things went wrong, and they couldn't have gone more wrong for Steve in the build-up to the World Cup, and to come and put in a performance like against South Africa like that, and to keep the team focused, because they didn't win, he didn't get the credit that's due, but he was magnificent. He never said anything about his players. He stuck to his plan. He almost beat a very, very strong South African side, having given no chance. So I don't think you need to go look further than Steve. He's
a classic example, Brendan, isn't he, of someone, a and I mean, I know Steve pretty well myself. I go back quite a long way with him, and I know how uncomfortable, genuinely uncomfortable he is with what we would call the public-facing role of a high-profile job. So he's a classic example, I think, of a bloke who's fundamentally misunderstood by everyone who's never worked with him.
Absolutely.
Would that be fair?
Great point. He is super bright, and he knows people. Steve has got so many good aspects to what he's about. I would never even look anywhere else, you know. And remember, England don't have at the moment the most dynamic team. They've had better teams in the past in certain positions. They're a little bit aging, a little things. You know, if you just looked at the firepower, they don't have the firepower like teams like France at the moment have, and like Ireland have, you know, and even South Africa. South Africa got firepower, you know, to score tries out of nothing. You know, England graft a win, and they graft a win.
Well, I mean, that sounds as if he's got a pretty difficult road to travel, because if England haven't got the firepower, if England haven't got the personnel at the moment, he's going to be public facing with potentially a pretty checkered record. And that's not an easy place to be. It would be horrendous for somebody in South Africa, because that's about as unforgiving as it gets outside New Zealand. And it's not great in England. You know, it takes probably longer for the worm to turn, but when it does, it's a very difficult place for a coach to be.
But the nice thing with Steve is at least he understands and knows that. So do you think Steve kicked the ball that much with their plan? If it wasn't, Steve will improve. Look what he did to Leicester. He improved their set piece. He gave them a kicking game. Sinfield came in and did the defense. And all of a sudden, Leicester were Premiership champions. And for me, I think he's going to do the same. You can only play with what you've got. The worst thing in coaching is you have this philosophy, this is what you want to do, but that's not the quality of player you have at the moment. And that's why I think, it's genuine, it's the truth. They're not bad, they're competitive, but they don't have, if you look at Rikai Oni and you look at, there's so many wild players in the All Blacks who you look at them and you go, wow, that was amazing. You know, and even South Africa, they've got loads of these incredible potential ball carriers, incredible wings who can do things out of nothing. Damien Willemse with his step, you know, so many things. And England just don't have that. You've got to go Freddie Stewart. He's a good player and he's an up and downer, you know, but he's just a good player. You know, he's never going to be the guy who scores you a try. That's why they went for Rundle, because they had at least one guy in the team who could do something out of nothing, you know. But in saying that, if I was a betting man, I would put a bit of money on Steve to actually turn this thing around. And become difficult to play against, really difficult to play against.
Well, it's a strong vote of confidence, that, because I just wonder, with what we've seen at this World Cup, I just wonder whether, you know, I mean, the big question is obviously that they have had no layers really in attack at all. And that's the bit that that has to come. But before that comes, they've got to sort out a scrum.
I agree with you 100%. You can't play like Steve wants to play. So the kicking you are in control of, that's easy. The defense you're in control of. But the set piece and in the maul, they were brilliant against South Africa. But the scrum is this one area that you can't hide. There's nowhere to go. It's 8 against 8. Somebody's putting the ball in, and it's a crowd. So I'll give you just a quick coaching thing. When I was at Saracens a long time ago, I did a little study, just thinking, where do tries come from? And I literally went and I picked a couple of teams in France, a couple of teams in New Zealand, Australia, and South Africa, and all the best teams. So there were 12 teams in my study. And I literally looked at tries. I looked at 20 tries of all of them. And because I want to look, is it shape? What is it? And it always comes down to the same thing, individual game-breaking ability. You run a shape, and Ireland has been the exception because their shape actually does break you down sometimes, but it breaks you down because Van der Aki still beats the guy. Ringrose still beats the guy, you know, and I think that's the key. When you want to go down that route, you must have game breakers, people that can get you over the game line, can get you a quick ball, and then when something happens, they must score. And if you don't have them, it's like saying we're going to scrum without a tight head. You know, you just have to find the tight head. So it is really, attack is about having game breakers. A shape on attack is overrated.
This is all stuff to bear in mind. And Brendan, you won't be a part of this in a few weeks' time, unless you want to be. Of course, we're going to be picking an England team to win the 2027 World Cup. So, panel, keep in mind all of this advice.
You've got Ben Earl, who's been special and super amazing, which Eddie thought was not good enough to play for England. Was potentially, you imagine how good Ben was, not only ball in hand, but defensively over the ball. Ben was almost the player of the tournament from an English point of view.
That second top tackler in the tournament, and the only forward in the top 10 of line breaks. Made more line breaks than Cheslin Colby.
Amazing. Honestly, that's amazing. In a team that actually didn't attack well. I mean, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that is one of the very few examples recently, no matter how, irrespective of how it came about, it's one of the few examples of England doing something unorthodox, sort of away from the common perception of what a position or what a player in a certain position should look like, be shaped like, should play like. And you mentioned Quacker Smith earlier on. I mean, no one's idea of somebody who can do what he does for South Africa. I mean, he's small for a start. I mean, absolutely phenomenal. You stick him at number 8. I mean, it goes back to Jerry Sonicus back in the day. He could play scrum half and number 8.
But
who was Jerry Sonicus?
Be careful with your comparisons, because Jerry Sonicus didn't work out for him.
Well, he worked out well enough in 1984 when they stuck 1 million points on England in 2 tests.
Yeah, well, that wasn't a contest.
Anyway, this is for the old. This is for the old guys. But Earl brought something different to England's number 8 position. Brought something different. It was. I
do want to tell you. Yeah. I obviously spent some time with Owen at Saracens, and don't underestimate where England's attack is going to go. They are actually much sharper than people think. And I think you look at Exeter, the way they trying to play the game at the moment, and Bath, the way they're trying to play the game. I actually think there's going to be a little bit of a breakthrough when the time comes. So attack takes longer than defense and obviously kicking and stuff to coach. So be a little bit patient with the attack. Owen understands attack.
What will we get? We're sort of, I'm conscious of time. Where Brendan, is another 20 minutes okay?
Okay, so 10.
10? Yeah, 10's good. 10's good. So all we'll do then is we're going to jump straight into our sort of player of the tournament, moment of the tournament, surprise of the tournament, and match of the tournament. So I tell you what we'll do is let's do an overall assessment of the tournament all together. Then Brendan, I'll get all 4 of yours from that. You can get going and get on with the rest of your evening, and then the rest of us will keep chatting for just a little bit. If that's okay. Yeah. Just overall assessment of the tournament. Obviously, we can go into the structural deficiencies that this tournament has exposed, but rather in terms of rugby, let's go to Nick. How does this tournament weigh up to its predecessors?
Look, I think that the quality of, having 4 teams of that quality in the World Cup gave it a real edge, and or probably all the way through, but certainly until the quarters. I think that the tournament was too long. I think that it lost momentum at various stages, but there were enough big games to sort of pull it back. I think France going out, obviously, in the quarterfinals was, it took some of the sort of the joie de vivre out of the tournament in many ways. I think that the best team that had the hardest road won the tournament, and deservedly so. Overall, you worry a little bit about the over commercialization of the tournament in many ways. I'm not sure that the fan experience is a great one a lot of the time. A lot of the transport issues and so on and so forth. But look, overall, it's a positive for rugby. It comes out on the right side again, but I think that they need to look at things pretty carefully. You know, this idea of going to 24 teams, it can't be more mismatches. You can't have, you know, too many results in a World Cup which are foregone conclusions. We've got to get away from it. We've got to get to something that's, you know, that's more competitive right across the script.
Yeah, 100%. Brendan Gallagher, you look like about to say something.
I was well, very much agree with Nick on almost everything. I thought the highest highs were as good as we've ever seen in a World Cup in terms of, you know, clashes between giants delivering absolutely, you know, sometimes in pure rugby forms, sometimes in spectacle. That was fantastic. There were too many mismatches. It did go on for at least a week too long. And just a little, I wasn't there, so I can't judge absolutely, but it's become a big city tournament, huge stadium tournament. And I felt at times it lacked a little bit of charm because, you know, that's not French rugby. French rugby is all the medium-sized towns and cities, you know, Toulouse downwards almost. So it lost a little bit there, but it was a pretty good tournament, some great memories.
Let's jump into it then. Brendan, I'm going to bring you in first, and yeah, we'll run down all of yours, and then you can get going. So can I start with your player of the tournament?
I think if you talk about the total workload of everybody involved and the influence it has on this group, Peter Steve du Toit is just phenomenal. Honestly, if you know, he just works and works and works, and you do look at a top team and you always see the fancy ball carriers, but the way he functions in the line-out, the way he scrummages, the way he defends, the way he carries, I think Peter Steve was amazing. And it's not because he was the final winner. It's just value in the South African setup. Everything that's good about South African rugby is a guy like Peter Steve.
I think we're just going to keep rattling through. So we'll go with your moment of the tournament.
Without a doubt, Andre's kick. Honestly, you talk about big match temperament and you've got all kinds of opinions on something. But to get a kick, to win it for your country and to slot it from there, that's not on the 15-meter line, on the 22. That was an unbelievable kick.
Yeah.
An unbelievable kick.
Just to collect, this is the one from the 10-meter. Well,
the English.
Oh, against England.
The English
okay.
game.
The English.
Yeah.
The semi-final.
Yeah.
I felt that is in, and also in the context, because I think there was only 3 minutes left when he kicked it. You know,
yeah, and about as good a strike of a rugby ball as you'll ever see.
100%. 100%.
Let's get match of the tournament.
So the surprise of the tournament for me, obviously the Portugal game, because it wasn't luck. You know, they played some great stuff. Even the week before, you know, there was some good stuff to watch. I loved that. And the match of the tournament for me was the French game, because the French were good. The French were prepared. They got a point back. The French played brilliantly for 60 minutes, like brilliantly. Basically outplayed South Africa for the first 60. And South Africa hung in there. And the subs came on, and the subs won for South Africa, you know. And the French had a couple of opportunities late in the game to maybe win it, and they didn't. I just think that was a cracking game of rugby, you know. And we saw some tries which we didn't actually see in some of the other games, or those high-stake knockout games in the semis and the final, you know.
Yeah, cannot disagree with that match of the tournament. we said a few weeks ago, just after quarterfinal weekend, that if you put the first half of France, South Africa together with the second half of Ireland, New Zealand, you have more or less the perfect game of rugby. I don't think it gets
absolutely.
Awesome. Right, Brendan, by all means get going. It's been absolutely fascinating having you, and I think this made for a cracking episode. Congratulations again. Yeah, very much deserved, and like you say, a remarkable run from your side. So yeah, great meeting you. And all. I
wish I could claim it, but I was just a supporter. It's been awesome. It's been nice just chatting rugby with you guys. All of you guys I've worked with when I was in England, and so it was just nice chatting away. Good to talk rugby.
Great to see you, Maestro.
Hey, it's good to see you, Brendan. Take care of yourself. Take care.
I will.
Take care, Brendan.
Bye.
Thanks very much indeed.
Okay, let's keep rattling through. He's great. That was great.
Yes, Brendan, yeah.
You should get into an argument with him.
Has that happened to you?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
today was quite what's the word? Tame.
Yeah, I mean, when I say an argument, it's perfectly good natured, but he's so passionate and so forceful in his opinions. And actually, if you do sort of win half an argument with him, he'll accept it and he'll stand there and say, "Oh, good point, yeah," or "Not thought of it that way." But it was also a really invigorating conversation with him, extraordinary. And some of his battles with authority were just priceless for us guys, for people in the press. I mean, it was just priceless.
Well, I know. I wanted to ask him about the interview, but obviously, he must have been asked about that millions of times, and so I didn't be that guy.
It was all great stuff.
Okay, let's rattle through. Let's do everyone's player of the tournament first. So we'll go slightly different structure to how we did it with Brendan. So we'll do everyone's player of the tournament first, and then we'll go through each one. So who would like to come forward with their player of the tournament?
Well, I'll give you an alternative to Peter Steff, who I think probably is the player of the tournament. But I don't think that South Africa would have won that tournament without Siya Kolisi. I just don't. It was, as discussed, it was so close. It was such an epic, journey that without that man at the tiller, I think something would have gone wrong. So he deserves all the accolades he's getting, and I'll go with him.
Nick?
Yeah, listen, it's very difficult. I mean, I'm not going to. I'm going to pick a South African as well. For the player of the tournament, I think it has to be. And
I know it's coming up.
And the Du Toit and the and the Kolisi calls are spot on, I think, as well. But I think Handré Pollard is the guy for me, because without we talked about it last week, and I'll say it again. And Brendan has just before going off, he pinpointed that kick against England to get them over the line was just ice cool, great technique, and it pulled them through. And that was the moment. He also in the obviously he scored all South Africa's points, and one of his penalties in the final was from 45 meters on the angle as well. So I thought, funnily enough, I thought he looked quite nervous with some of the easier kicks early on. He snatched at a couple of them, but they hit the target. But I just think that the pressure on those players in those moments is just, I mean, it's off the charts. I can't imagine being in that situation, and I'm thankful. I never was. A goal kicking of I mean, it's a closed skill and so on and so forth. It's not as scintillating and brilliant as open field, some of the open field moves, but just for sheer pressure and intensity and managing to deliver in the moment. So I'd say Pollard.
Chewy?
I buy both of those arguments. I do think Pollard is as good a goal kicker. He may not have had the points accumulation of other people like a Wilkinson or a Carter or what have you, but he is right up there with anything we've ever seen as a goal kicker, I think, or any in the modern age. I thought he was remarkably cool-headed considering his story coming into the tournament. I'm not going to go for a South African, partly because one of the things that frustrates the hell out of me is the automatic assumption that the man of a match has got to finish on the winning side, which is Bulls. It's always been Bulls. It continues to be Bulls. But this is not the reason.
This had better not be a turkey.
I'm making this point, and I'm not going to go for Carter Gordon. What I do think that there were two or three candidates for this, and Peter Steff du Toit is clearly one. He's a hell of a, crikey, what an engine that bloke has. A fantastic performance in the final, really fantastic performance in the final, and head and shoulders I think, above any of the contenders, bar one. Had Ireland gone much further, I think Bundy Aki would have been part of a discussion. But I just think that for sheer never say die, utter commitment, massive influences on games, and just that if you're going to beat the All Blacks, he's the mountain you have to clamber over, is Ardie Savea, who I thought was absolutely sensational. Sensational.
You stole mine. Ardie was mine as well. And I was feeling ambivalent about not picking a Safa. So
I'll tell you what, if you wanted another Safa, I just seen something, in the stats. I mean, Brendan mentioned Quagga Smith, and I don't know how long he was on, because he seemed to sort of come on for sort of 15 minutes every game or 10 minutes every game. He's top of the bloody turnovers. He's got 10, probably in about half an hour's game time, which is bloody staggering.
He's one hell of an influencer, to use the modern word. Is he not? I mean, remarkable, and he can play anywhere in that back row.
But Savea, I agree with you about Savea. The thing that I find astounding about him is that he is not, in the scheme of things, a really big man.
No.
He punches in terms of power, per pound, higher than virtually anybody else.
Just in that complete mess at the end of the sort of remnants of the final scrum, when the All Blacks, obviously, there's clocks all around the place now. They knew exactly what had to be done if they could conceivably do it, and his attempts to win that ball that he had absolutely no right to win, or no chance of winning, really, were ferocious. All you could see was a bloke with a number 8 on his back, scrapping against the world to try and get this ball back. Absolutely staggering commitment. I mean, he's a heck of a player, that bloke. I mean, and I don't know how old he is. I should know. It's my job to know, but I don't. But if he's going to end his career without a World Cup winners' medal, I don't think he was part of the 2015 squad. Then that will be a sadness. I mean, you won't be alone in that, of course. But there's a lot of good players who never won one. But
he's 30. So
he is.
So he might be around.
I really hope he's around for Australia. Really hope he is.
And what a great advert, by the way, for an 80-minute rugby player. Yeah. All this twaddle about replacements, substitute. There's nobody on earth who puts in more effort than Savea, and he's going as strong in the 80th minute as he is in the first.
And it's only and apart from anything else, he has ended all that tripe, has he not, about the thing with the All Blacks sort of special haka, their meaningful haka that they do for the big games, and that running that thumb across the throat, and the All Blacks tried to pretend that it was not a throat-slitting gesture. You just watch Ardie Savea do it, and you know full well what it is. So he's ended that nonsense as well.
On the subject of nonsense, by the way, when did it become permissible for haka leader Aaron Smith to come on with a weapon, an offensive weapon? How long has that been permissible?
It's great.
Do you mean another canoe paddle?
Well, I don't know what it is, but I wouldn't want to be hit by it.
What was I going to say? And obviously, Ardie Savea, he's just won World Player of the Year, and I don't think anyone can argue with that decision either.
No, he's been pretty good. But I mean, the margins on this are tiny.
My Player of the Year would have been Khaleesi. Really? I just think for the reasons that we've just heard, 4.5 months back from a torn ACL, but also just not only his playing ability, but also the fact that he's become the ambassador in many ways that rugby desperately needs. He is a real, he's a real figure that that begins to transcend the sport in some ways.
Yeah. How does Ian Foster get nominated for Coach of the Year, by the way?
Very good question. I didn't know he had been.
Yeah, he was on a short list of 4 with Farrell, Ninaba, and somebody else. But it's
Simon Raoului.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So are we going to round this off, Ollie?
Sorry. So yeah, that was our player of the tournament. We'll go with where do we go? Moment of the tournament next. Again, just a quick round robin. Let's go with Chewy this time.
Oh, I made this argument last week as well. I'm completely with Brendan Venter on the Pollard kick. I thought that was cracky. I mean, there's so much hung on that, and the weird thing about it was, to my eye, he didn't look like missing it. Not for a second did he look like missing that. That was a clutch kick, and that was my moment for sure.
Just to add to that, I'll do mine very quickly. Another sort of Brendan spoke about his controllables. One controllable bit of South African luck, so to speak. Cheslin Colby's charged down, and I apologise, Brendan or Nick, if I've taken one of yours. But when you look at South Africa winning the World Cup, I think that's arguably even more, or just as much, certainly, of a pivotal moment as Pollard's kick is. So there's mine. Brendan, did I steal yours?
Actually, I'm still not convinced by that charge down. So it was definitely a moment. No, my moment, and let's get away from all this heavyweight nonsense. The moment everybody wanted was the Portugal win. Yeah. Fantastic all tournament, brilliant against Georgia, losing in the last minutes against Fiji, had the guts to go for it down the blind side with 2 of their best players, with Marta, wasn't it?
Marta and Storty, wasn't it? And
Storty. Yeah. Did a 1-2, Marta on the inside.
Yeah.
Dob down, fist, ball into the crowd. But it was the moment the entire World Cup wanted. Yeah. I felt the whole tournament wanted confirmation that these guys are great and we love them, but also they're doing a good thing, a great thing for rugby, the way they're playing. And it was unrivaled joy. I don't think anybody begrudged it to them.
And of course, we can all look forward to seeing them 4 years again, because we won't be seeing them before that, thanks to World Rugby.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Listen, I'm not going to come up with anything other than what Brendan said. That's what I've got down. That Portuguese moment for me, they were in many ways, they're the breakthrough team of the tournament. They're the hope that we actually get a World Cup where every game tantamount to means, is keenly contested, is absolutely. I've seen too many processions in Rugby World Cups. I've had enough of them.
Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more.
Yeah, me neither. Rather than go through surprise of the tournament and match of the tournament, just does anyone have anything down that hasn't been mentioned yet? Because obviously we've mentioned that France South Africa game. We've mentioned the Portugal as the surprise of the tournament. So just if anything hasn't been mentioned yet.
I've got one little thing. This mantra about ball in play time is very misleading. One of the lowest ball in play time was Ireland, South Africa. Another low one was South Africa, England. Both compelling matches to watch, utterly compelling. The highest figure, I think, was New Zealand, Argentina, 45 minutes. Sorry, just lost interest in the second half. So let's not be beholden to this ball in play mantra. A good rugby match is a good rugby match, regardless of how much ball in play time there is.
If you wanted a shock of the tournament, obviously, the Fiji win over Australia was great, but the real shock for me was Wales burying Australia by 40 points to 5. I never ever saw that coming. I mean, you could just about see Fiji beating Australia, but I never saw Wales putting a shed load of points on Australia.
My shock of the tournament was again in a Wales game. It was just the theory that Nicolas Sanchez could run 50 yards to score a try. It'll take me a while to get over that.
Yeah.
But not as long as it'll take him.
I'll tell you what, I would have loved to see you chasing him down.
Believe me, I'd have got there.
Yeah, 5 minutes after he touched down. Yeah.
How about you, Ollie? Any other minutes or moments that you like?
No, to be honest, well, did I say a moment of the tour? I said the moment of the tournament.
Yeah.
President Colby. To be honest, I mean, surprise of the tournament, we've kind of covered. Mine would have been Portugal, and match of the tournament I've already covered, which is why I asked you guys. So no, I think we pretty much covered everything. Obviously,
What were the major disappointments, if any?
well, I guess Australia. Not that us Poms would have been that disappointed by that. And Italy were disappointing.
They were, weren't they? They were.
So I think that's a question that will have to be raised again when we get to Six Nations time.
And the other disappointment is probably that Samoa and Tonga, who both improved with the tournament, just were not in a position to arrive at those opening games on a level playing field. Because, you know, the Samoa side that should have been England could have caused damage in that pool, but they just didn't start like that.
Well, they tested England pretty strong. I mean, I know England didn't have to win that game, but they pushed England really hard. You just want to see these teams. You just want a level. It's never going to be a level playing field.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fantasy to imagine in the professional era with its commercial imperatives you're ever going to get a level playing field, but a leveling of the playing field. Because at the moment it's like bloody K2.
Yeah.
A leveling of the playing field is not beyond the wit of man.
No.
But it is beyond the wit of the World Rugby, who have done
apparently so. Who I mean, that press conference last week about quantum leaps and truly, really the most historic day in the history of rugby. I mean, what is? Give me a break. Give me a break.
Yep. With you.
Right, guys, I think that wraps us up for Rugby World Cup 2023. We may do an episode. We'll definitely do an episode picking our England side for 2027, because I think that will be carnage, if anything. We may do an episode talking about the structures and the new World League and things like that. I want to get Mark Evans back on to help talk about that. So that should be a good one. But
you can talk bollocks again, Brendan.
Yeah, exactly.
Tin hat on.
Not much changes in a year. But yeah,
ask him if he can do it on the beach in Fiji.
Yeah, we're on YouTube now. We get to see the anger in his face when he hears Brendan talk.
Yeah, either that or the sunburn.
I've got to tell you, he started retweeting me and agreeing with stuff. So I don't know what's going on there. He must be mellowing.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll have to get you face to face again to reignite the fire. You know,
I need my voice though if I'm gonna have a go at Mark.
Yeah, don't worry. I'll give you a bit of time. Yeah, the podcast will be having a little bit of a post World Cup break, but gents, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, well done, Ollie.
My strength.
Yeah, been very good. Anyone seen Maxime Mermoz?
He's behind you.
Chris, there's another bit that's not making the edit, for God's sake.
Oh yeah, okay.
Right, guys. I'll see you guys soon, but thanks so much.
Well done.
The rugby just keeps on coming at the moment, and the Guinness Six Nations is just around the corner and will be upon us before we know it. Make it a year to remember by booking official hospitality with our friends at Keith Prowse, principal sales partner to England Rugby Hospitality. Their matchday experiences have a whole range of incredible features, from complimentary bars to menus designed by Michelin star chefs, namely Tom Kerridge, Ollie Deboo and Tommy Banks. So, book your experience now and make memories that will last a lifetime. Visit keithprowse.co.uk/Twickenham now. Thanks for listening to this week's edition of the Rugby Paper Podcast, and don't forget to subscribe on whichever podcast platform you use and recommend the show to your friends. The Rugby Paper is available to buy every Sunday, and to make sure you don't miss it, subscribe through our print, digital and online options at therugbypaper.co.uk/subscriptions. That's therugbypaper.co.uk/subscriptions to get all our content for as little as 14p per day.